My parents are right. You're beneath our family now. I deserve someone better. Those words hit like a sledgehammer. But instead of begging, I looked my fiancée dead in the eyes and said, then climb down to my level and find the door. What happened next would destroy her family's empire, expose her dirty secrets, and lead to the most shocking twist ending you've ever heard. If you're ready for a story about real consequences and why you should never underestimate someone you've written off, smash that like button because this gets insane. The name is Chase. Senior software engineer, 28, pulling 6 figures at a Fortune 500 company. Stock options, headhunter calls, the works. I'd built my career from absolutely nothing, sleeping on couches in college, coding until 3 a.m., living on ramen and determination while other kids had trust funds backing their dreams. My fiancée, Brooklyn. Trust fund princess whose father, Harrison, owns luxury car dealerships across 3 states. Mother, Vivian, old Connecticut money who'd never worked but had opinions about everyone else's potential. The type of family who measured worth in yacht club memberships and Hamptons addresses. 2.5 years together. Engaged 6 months. Living in a downtown loft where I paid 70% because it was important for her image to live in the right neighborhood. Brooklyn worked in PR for startups, a job that sounded impressive but barely covered her shopping habits. Tuesday evening, October 2023. I'd just closed the Morrison deal, a $12 million contract that would revolutionize digital infrastructure for 3 major banks. I was riding high, thinking about surprising Brooklyn with dinner at that overpriced French place she loved. Walking into our apartment, I found Brooklyn sitting at our kitchen island, staring at her phone with this weird expression. Not sad, not angry, calculating. Like she was working through a complex equation where I was one of the variables. The Morrison deal went through, I announced, loosening my tie. $12 million in revenue. My bonus is going to be massive. She barely looked up. That's nice. Nice? I'd just landed the biggest deal of my career, and she said, nice? This was the project that had consumed my life for 6 months, the one that would set up our future, the one that should have made her parents finally see my worth. Everything okay? I asked, grabbing a beer from the fridge. Had lunch with my parents today, she said flatly. Red flag number 1. Brooklyn's parents had been cool toward me from day one. Not openly hostile, just perpetually disappointed. Like I was some temporary inconvenience they were waiting to outgrow. Then she said the words that would end everything. They don't approve anymore. They think you're beneath our family now. I deserve someone better. And if you think this is where I fought for her, you're about to see why that would have been the biggest mistake of my life. Beneath you? I repeated, my voice turning ice cold. They made valid points, Brooklyn continued, finally looking up from her phone. Your job is just technical. It's not leadership. It's not building anything meaningful. Technical? I'd architected systems that handled millions of daily transactions. I'd designed the infrastructure that entire companies depended on. But to her family, I was just some guy who played with computers in a basement somewhere. Look at David, she continued, gaining momentum. Remember him? He just made partner at his law firm. House in Westchester, BMW, the whole package. Real success. David, her ex-boyfriend, the one her parents had worshipped, the one they still brought up at every family dinner, wondering aloud why Brooklyn had downgraded to me. And honestly, Brooklyn stood up, pacing now. They're right. You're comfortable being average, but I'm not. I want more than this. She gestured around our expensive loft, the one I paid for. Average. 3 years of passive-aggressive family comments. 3 years of being measured against some impossible standard. 3 years of feeling like I had to prove my worth to people who'd inherited theirs. But here's what Brooklyn didn't know. I'd stopped caring about their approval months ago. The only opinion that mattered was hers, and now I had my answer. You meant every word, I said, setting down my beer with surgical precision. Now you'll live with every consequence. She looked confused, like she'd expected tears or begging. What? You do deserve better. Someone who meets your family's golden standards. Chase, I didn't mean, yes, you did. I walked toward our bedroom, my voice getting colder with each step. And I respect you for finally being honest about what you really think of me. But I wasn't going to shower. I was going to plan her complete destruction, because what I discovered while she slept would change everything. And I mean everything. Midnight. Brooklyn was asleep, breathing softly, completely unaware this was the last time she'd sleep in our bed. She looked peaceful, innocent even. The same face I'd fallen in love with 3 years ago, before I understood what lay beneath it. Her laptop was still open on the kitchen counter. Brooklyn always closed it. She was paranoid about privacy. Always. Unless she'd been in such a hurry to hide something that she'd only put it to sleep mode. I touched the mousepad. The screen lit up like a window into hell. Her Gmail was open, and the most recent email thread made my blood run cold. david.morrison.esquire@gmail.com for brooklynmontgomery.pr@gmail.com. Subject: tonight's conversation. David, I finally told him. You were right, I can't keep stringing him along while we figure out our situation. The dinner tomorrow is still on, right? I know it's complicated with your firm's ethics policies, but once I'm officially single. I scrolled up through weeks of messages. Months of betrayal laid out in brutal detail. Chase is getting suspicious about my work dinners. Maybe we should cool it until after the wedding? Lowell, your parents think I'm beneath you? Wait until they find out about us. David's parents will love the scandal. The ring is pretty, but David, when you propose, make sure it's bigger. I have a reputation to maintain. Brooklyn hadn't chosen her parents over me. She'd been running a long con, using me as financial security while she arranged her real future with David. I screenshotted everything. Every email, every attachment, every piece of evidence that would destroy both their lives. Then I executed the coldest revenge in history. But Trevor's next text would make Brooklyn's betrayal look like child's play. My phone buzzed with a text from Trevor, my college buddy who worked in finance downtown. Dude, you need to see something. Brooklyn's been at David's office building 3 times this week. Sarah saw her in the parking garage, going to the penthouse level. Thought you should know. Sarah was Trevor's girlfriend who worked in the same building as David's law firm. She'd spotted Brooklyn where she had no business being unless she was planning her post-Chase life. Perfect. More evidence to add to the pile. But here's where it gets really interesting. I also forwarded Brooklyn's entire email chain to someone else. Maya Morrison, David's sister, the brilliant surgeon I'd met at a charity event 3 months ago. Maya and I had been talking. Nothing inappropriate while I was engaged, but there was undeniable chemistry, mutual respect, the kind of connection I'd thought I had with Brooklyn before I realized it was all performance. Maya's response came through at 1:30 a.m. Chase, I've been waiting for someone to expose this. David's been cheating on his fiancée Emma for 6 months. I have proof. We need to talk ASAP. David was engaged to someone else while pursuing Brooklyn. While Brooklyn was engaged to M.E. This wasn't just about Brooklyn choosing someone better. This was about 2 narcissistic sociopaths destroying multiple lives for their own entertainment. I felt something shift inside me. Not hurt. That would come later. Not anger. That was too hot, too uncontrolled. This was something colder. More surgical. They wanted to play games? Fine, but they had no idea they were playing against someone who'd built his entire career on strategic thinking. First move, lease transfer to put the apartment entirely in Brooklyn's name. She wanted independence? She could have it, along with the full rent she'd never be able to afford on her PR salary. Second move, remove her as an authorized user on my credit card account. Her emergency shopping fund just disappeared. Third move, create a detailed list of every utility, subscription, and service tied to my name that kept this place running. Cable, electricity, internet, streaming accounts, all going dark in 30 days. I wrote my note with the precision of a surgeon and the coldness of an executioner. Brooklyn, I've transferred the lease to your name. Utilities paid through next month. I'll collect my things later. Enjoy your upgrade. Just remember to ask David about Emma. P.S. Check your email. I forwarded you something interesting. Chase. I left it on the counter next to her engagement ring. The one that had cost me 3 months' salary, but was apparently not impressive enough for her family's taste, along with printed copies of her emails with David. At 2 a.m., I loaded my car with the essentials and drove to Trevor's place across town. Their desperation would be pathetic, but watching them scramble would be satisfying. And if you think That's when things got crazy. Wait until you hear what happened when Brooklyn realized I'd found everything. My phone exploded at 6:47 a.m. like a digital volcano. 47 missed calls, 73 text messages, 12 voicemails, all from Brooklyn, each message more frantic than the last. Where are you? Call me right now. How dare you go through my personal emails? It's not what it looks like. David means nothing. He's just a friend. Just a friend? The hotel reservation said otherwise. The I love you texts said otherwise. The detailed plans for their future said otherwise. Then came the desperate, revealing messages. My parents don't know about David. Please don't tell them. I can explain everything if you just talk to me. The lease transfer won't work. I can't afford this place alone. You canceled my credit card. How am I supposed to pay for anything? That last one was particularly rich. Despite her family's supposed wealth, Brooklyn lived paycheck to paycheck, using my credit line to maintain her lifestyle while her parents covered her student loans and car payments. But the best message came at 11:30 a.m. David won't return my calls. What did you do? What I'd done was beautifully simple. I'd sent David one email that destroyed his entire world. Saw your reservation at the Marriott for tomorrow night. Room 1247, 8 p.m. Does Emma know about your romantic getaway? Does your law firm's ethics board know you're sleeping with clients' daughters while engaged to someone else? Does your senior partner know you're using firm resources for personal affairs? Choose your next move very, very carefully. Apparently, David chose to ghost Brooklyn entirely rather than risk his career and engagement. Smart man. Cowardly, but smart. But the real fireworks started when Harrison called me that afternoon. Chase, we need to talk, now. Harrison's voice was different, not his usual condescending country club tone. This was desperation wearing a thin mask of authority. I don't think we do, Harrison. Look, Brooklyn made a mistake, a huge mistake, but she loves you. This thing with David was just cold feet about the wedding. How did you know about David? The silence stretched like a taut wire. Harrison, how did you know about David if Brooklyn didn't tell you? Look, that's not the important thing right now. It's the most important thing, because either Brooklyn told you she was cheating on me, which makes you complicit in her betrayal, or you already knew about David, which makes this whole "you're not good enough" conversation a carefully orchestrated setup. I could hear him breathing heavily on the other end. Which is it, Harrison? We may have encouraged her to explore her options before making such a permanent commitment. There it was. The truth, finally. You knew she was seeing David. You planned this whole thing. It wasn't planned exactly, more like guided. We just wanted her to be sure. Then what was it like? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you used your daughter to string me along while you arranged her real future with someone who met your social standards. Chase, please, we can work this out. Brooklyn is devastated. She's been crying since yesterday morning. Good. Consequences should hurt. You're being unreasonable. Am I? Let me get this straight. You convinced your daughter that I wasn't good enough, encouraged her to cheat on me with her ex, then expected me to just, what? Sit there and take it? We didn't think you'd just leave like that. We thought you'd fight for her. Why would I fight for someone who doesn't want to be fought for? Because she does want you. She just needed to be sure. She was sure. She was sure I wasn't good enough. She was sure David was better. She was sure your approval mattered more than my dignity. Chase, please, we can make this right. Actually, you can't, because I'm about to make this everyone's problem, and what Maya discovered next about the Montgomery family would explain everything. Maya and I met that evening at a quiet cafe downtown. She looked tired but determined, carrying a thick manila folder that would change everything. David's having a complete meltdown, she told me, sliding into the booth across from me. Emma called off their engagement this morning. Threw the ring at his head, apparently. Her father's threatening to pull his investment from David's firm. Good. He earned it. But there's something else. Something about Brooklyn's family you need to know. She opened the folder, revealing bank statements, business filings, and loan documents. My brother's law firm handles the Montgomery family's legal work. I shouldn't have access to this, but David's been sloppy with confidential files lately. I scanned the first page. Numbers that didn't make sense. Assets that looked impressive until you saw the liabilities column. Harrison's dealerships are failing. Have been for months. They're leveraged beyond belief, missed 3 major loan payments, and the banks are circling like vultures. How bad? Catastrophic. He owes $12 million across multiple properties. The family fortune? It's all smoke and mirrors. She flipped to another page. Credit card statements showing maxed out limits. Mortgage documents showing second and third liens on properties. Investment accounts showing massive losses from bad stock picks and cryptocurrency disasters. They needed Brooklyn to marry money. David's law firm was going to bail them out through some kind of investment partnership. That's why they were pushing so hard against you, even though you were obviously successful. They were broke. Completely. The country club membership, maxed credit cards, the Hamptons house, about to be foreclosed on, the luxury cars at the dealership, most of them are leased or financed at crushing interest rates. Everything clicked into place like puzzle pieces forming a horrifying picture. The sudden urgency about my potential, the pointed questions about my career trajectory, the pressure on Brooklyn to do better. They weren't protecting their daughter from someone beneath her. They were protecting their approaching bankruptcy from someone who might expose their desperation. "There's one more thing," Maya said, her voice dropping lower. "The reason I reached out to you 3 months ago at that charity event." But Maya's revelation would reframe this entire story. "David had been bragging to our family about his side project," Maya continued. "Some engineer's fiancée he was stealing away. He showed me Brooklyn's photo, said she was engaged to some loser techie her parents hated but tolerated because he paid their bills." My blood went cold. David had been bragging about stealing Brooklyn from me, to his family, like I was some obstacle to overcome rather than a human being. "I Googled you that night, read about your work, your projects, your achievements. You weren't a loser. You were brilliant." David was lying about everything, and I wanted to meet the man he was so obviously threatened by. "You knew this whole time?" I suspected Brooklyn was being manipulated by both sides, her family pushing her toward David for money, David using her to prove he could steal whatever he wanted. But I needed to see what kind of person you were, whether you were worth defending. "And? The night you told Brooklyn you were leaving, I'd already decided I was going to expose David's scheme to Emma. You just beat me to it." Maya reached across the table and took my hand. Her touch was warm, genuine. Everything Brooklyn's had stopped being months ago. "I've been falling for you for months, Chase. Not because you're successful or impressive, but because you're genuine. Because when someone tries to tear you down, you don't break. You analyze, plan, and execute perfect justice." The chemistry I'd felt at the charity event, the connection that had been building through our conversations, the respect that Brooklyn had never shown me, it was all real. "Maya, I know this is complicated. I know the timing is terrible. But I also know that David and Brooklyn deserve each other. 2 narcissists who destroy everything they touch. And I know that you deserve someone who sees your worth from day one." Their desperation was pathetic. Watching them scramble for solutions to problems they'd created was deeply satisfying. And if you think that's the end of this story, you haven't met the new Chase. 2 days later, Harrison showed up at my office building. Not called ahead. Not scheduled a meeting. Just appeared in my company's lobby at 3 p.m. on a Thursday, looking like he'd aged 10 years in 48 hours. "Chase, please, 5 minutes." "You've got 2. We sat in the sleek lobby surrounded by awards and recognition my company had earned. Harrison kept looking around, probably calculating the value of everything he could see. "I underestimated you," he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. "You used me. We were desperate. The business is struggling. We thought if Brooklyn married David, his firm could help us restructure our debt, maybe find some investors. So you pimped out your daughter to save your failing dealerships." "It wasn't like that." "Then what was it like, Harrison?" "Because Brooklyn thinks she was choosing love, but you were choosing financial survival. The family has obligations. The family has debts, massive ones. And instead of facing reality, you decided to sacrifice your daughter's happiness and my dignity to maintain your lifestyle. We never meant for anyone to get hurt." You meant for me to get hurt. You just didn't expect me to find out about your scheme. Chase, if there's any way, you had your chance to show respect. You chose manipulation instead. Live with the consequences. I stood up to leave, but Harrison grabbed my arm. Please, we'll do anything. Brooklyn is falling apart. She hasn't eaten in 2 days. She's been calling David non-stop, but he won't even acknowledge her existence. Sounds like a problem she created. She loves you. She made a mistake, but she loves you. She loves what I represented. Financial security while she played house with someone better. That's not true. Then why are you here, Harrison? Why aren't you talking to David? Why isn't he the one groveling to fix this? Silence. Because David never loved her either. He was using her just like you were. And now that the scheme is exposed, everyone's abandoning ship. Harrison's face crumpled. What do you want? Money? A stake in the business? Name your price. I don't want anything from you. You have nothing I need. I walked toward the elevators, leaving Harrison sitting alone in my company's lobby. A broken man in an expensive suit, surrounded by the success he'd convinced his daughter I'd never achieve. But what happened next made Harrison's desperation look like a warm-up act. That weekend, Brooklyn showed up at Maya's hospital. Maya's hospital. She'd somehow figured out we were together and decided to confront the woman who'd stolen her backup plan. Maya texted me at noon. Your ex is in my ER causing a scene. Security's involved. You might want to come handle this. I arrived to find Brooklyn in the parking lot, screaming at Maya through the glass doors while 2 security guards held her back. You stole him. He's mine. You don't even know him like I do. Maya stood in the doorway in her surgical scrubs, looking completely calm and professional, like she was dealing with any other unhinged person who'd wandered into her workplace. Ma'am, you need to leave hospital property immediately, the larger security guard was saying. Brooklyn, I called out. She spun around, and I barely recognized the woman I'd once planned to marry. Hair disheveled, makeup smeared from crying, eyes wild with desperation. Chase, thank God. Tell her what we had. Tell her she can't just take you from me. Brooklyn, you need to go home. I'm not going anywhere until she understands that you belong with me. I don't belong to anyone. But I choose to be with Maya. She's using you, just like you think I was. Can't you see that? Actually, Maya said, stepping outside for the first time, I should probably mention something that might interest you. Brooklyn turned to her, building up to another explosion of rage. David's my brother, Maya said simply. Brooklyn's face went through about 6 different emotions in 2 seconds. Confusion, realization, horror, rage, and finally defeat. You're what? My brother, David Morrison, the one you were cheating with while engaged to Chase. The one who ghosted you the moment his scheme was exposed. That's impossible. David Morrison, partner at Morrison, Hayes & Associates. My older brother who's been disappointing our family for years with his ethical shortcuts and personal disasters. Brooklyn looked back and forth between us like she was trying to solve an impossible equation. I chose Chase, Maya continued, because he's everything my brother isn't. Honest, loyal, actually worth defending. And what Brooklyn said next proved she'd learned absolutely nothing. This is all your fault. Brooklyn screamed at Maya, pointing an accusing finger. If your brother hadn't led me on, none of this would have happened. Even in complete defeat, facing the wreckage of her own choices, she still couldn't take responsibility. Led you on? Maya replied with surgical calm. You pursued an engaged man while you were engaged to someone else. You planned hotel meetings and discussed your future together. That's not being led on. That's being a willing participant in mutual destruction. He wasn't married. Engaged to Emma for 8 months, which you knew about because David showed you her picture and laughed about how he was playing both of you. I didn't. Brooklyn, I interrupted, my voice cutting through her denials like ice. It's over. Your parents used you as a financial pawn. David used you as entertainment, and you used me as a safety net. Everyone's true colors are showing. But I love you, she screamed, tears streaming down her face. I made a mistake, but I love you. You love what I represent. Security, stability, someone to pay your bills while you chase better options that your parents approve of. That's not true. Then explain the emails. Explain the hotel reservations. Explain the detailed plans for your future with David. Explain why you only realized you loved me after your backup plan fell through and your parents' financial scheme collapsed. Brooklyn looked around desperately. At Maya in her surgeon's scrubs, representing everything she'd thought she wanted, at me in my expensive suit, representing everything she'd thrown away, at the hospital security treating her like the unhinged person she'd become. "This isn't over," she said finally, her voice cracking. "Yes, it is," Maya replied. "And if you come near Chase again, if you show up at his workplace, if you contact him in any way, I'll make sure everyone in this city knows the truth about your family's bankruptcy, your cheating scandal, and your complete inability to take responsibility for your choices." "You can't prove." "Actually, we can. David keeps meticulous records of everything. It's a lawyer thing. Screenshots, hotel receipts, recorded phone calls, detailed financial documents about your parents' debts. He documents everything for potential leverage. Bad habit that's about to destroy all of you." Brooklyn's face crumpled as the full reality finally hit her. The fairy tale was over. The safety nets were gone. The consequences were real and permanent. But the final twist would prove that karma has a very long memory and an even longer reach. 6 months later, I was featured on the cover of Tech Innovation magazine. "The engineer who revolutionized digital infrastructure: How Chase Morrison Built the Future." Maya and I had been engaged for 2 months. She'd proposed to me, actually, after successfully performing a 12-hour surgery that saved a child's life. Said watching me handle the Brooklyn situation had shown her what real strength looked like, and life was too short to wait for perfect timing. We were at a tech conference in Austin, me as the keynote speaker, Maya as my date and biggest supporter, when Trevor texted me during my presentation, "Dude, turn on Channel 7 News when you get a break. Local business scandal. You're going to want to see this." We found a TV in the hotel lobby during the lunch break. The local news was running an exposé on business fraud in the luxury car industry. Montgomery Luxury Motors has filed for bankruptcy. The anchor was saying, ending a 30-year run as one of the region's most prominent dealership chains. Federal investigators have uncovered a pattern of fraudulent financing, tax evasion, and embezzlement that stretches back nearly 5 years. The camera showed Harrison being escorted out of his flagship dealership by federal agents in handcuffs. Apparently, when the David plan fell through and bankruptcy became inevitable, he'd tried some creative accounting that caught the IRS's attention. Vivian Montgomery was also arrested on charges of tax evasion and conspiracy to commit fraud, the anchor continued. The couple allegedly used customer deposits to fund their personal lifestyle while failing to pay federal taxes on dealership profits. Then Brooklyn appeared on screen, clearly being interviewed outside the federal courthouse, looking like a shadow of her former self. "This is all a misunderstanding," she was saying, her voice shaky and desperate. "My parents are good people who made some financial mistakes during tough economic times. We'll fight these charges and prove their innocence. But here's the best part. The News Chiron identified her as Brooklyn Montgomery, unemployed daughter of defendants." Unemployed. Because apparently when David ghosted her and the cheating scandal became public knowledge in their social circles, her reputation in the PR world evaporated overnight. No one wanted to hire someone who'd publicly destroyed her engagement while pursuing her ex behind everyone's back. "Feel bad for her?" Maya asked, squeezing my hand as we watched Brooklyn's world crumble on national television. I felt nothing but cold satisfaction. They got exactly what they deserved. All of them, because the right person doesn't need to be convinced of your worth. They know it from day one and defend it against the world. Epilogue. 2 years later, my startup was acquired by Microsoft for $2.8 billion. Maya and I bought a house in Seattle overlooking Puget Sound. She runs the cardiothoracic surgery department at Seattle General. I consult for tech companies and invest in promising startups, building the kind of empire that Harrison could only dream of. Last month, I got a LinkedIn message from Brooklyn. She'd apparently moved to Cleveland, working at a small marketing firm for a fraction of her old salary, living in a studio apartment that probably cost less than what she used to spend on shoes. "Chase, I know I have no right to contact you, but I wanted you to know I understand now what I threw away. I was young and stupid and listened to the wrong people. My parents' financial pressure made me crazy, and I made terrible decisions that destroyed everything good in my life. If there's any chance you could forgive me, if there's any possibility we could talk. I showed the message to Maya while she was reviewing surgical reports in our home office. "What are you going to do?" she asked, not looking up from her work. I clicked delete without reading the rest. Some mistakes don't deserve forgiveness. They deserve to be forgotten. Maya smiled and went back to saving lives, which is what people of actual value do with their time. That's when I knew I'd made the right choice. The right person doesn't make you prove your worth. The right person doesn't need their family's approval to choose you. The right person stands by you when the world tries to tear you down. The right person builds you up instead of measuring you against impossible standards. Brooklyn was right about one thing. She did deserve better. She deserved someone who'd accept being treated as a backup plan. She deserved someone who'd forgive being used as financial security. She deserved someone who'd take her back after she'd proven she couldn't be trusted. She deserved someone weak enough to beg for her parents' approval. But that someone wasn't me. If this story proves anything, it's that knowing your worth isn't arrogance, it's survival. Smash that like button if you believe in standing up for yourself. Subscribe for more stories about real consequences and strategic justice. And comment below if you've ever had to walk away from someone who didn't value you until it was too late. Remember, don't be anyone's plan B. Be someone's only plan, or make your own plan so powerful that everyone else becomes irrelevant. The end.